Good morning, boys and girls. I've got a question for you guys. Who knows what I do? Yes. Good one. What do I do? No. I preach. Yeah. I do this, make sure everything looks good on a Sunday morning, yeah. What else? Anything else? What? I do stuff. Okay, yeah. I do lots of stuff. You're absolutely right. And you know what? You know one of my favorite things to do is when Josh preaches, he's right over there. When he preaches, I leave church and I go with you guys. You know that, right? And do you know what I do when I leave with you guys? I go in your classrooms and I see if there are any questions that your teachers can't answer. Ask the pastor. Have you all ever heard me answer some of those questions? Oh, God, boy. It's a rough day, I tell you. Eric nodded his head, yes. But you know what? Last week I went and had some incredible questions in the 4th and 5th grade class. They asked me great questions. And then I went to the 2nd and 3rd grade class and they asked me some good questions too. And those are my favorite interactions with you guys. I mean, this is nice, but when I remember wiping away the tear of your eye, Addie, that one day, remember? Oh, yes, you had a tear. And I wiped the tear away and I said, oh, fairy tears are magical. And you know what you did? You stopped like that. It was like magic. Yes, you did. You do remember that. And you know, that was one of my favorite things of that Sunday, not the preaching or anything else. And you know, in Jamaica, it was sort of like the same thing. We built a lot of stuff and did things. But you know what? Everyone else had a great experience of just the kids. And so I'm going to let everyone share their experiences of the kids. We're going to start with Carolyn.
One of my favorite experiences was at night, one of the little girls was showing Aaliyah and I her dance moves. And she was a really good dancer, and it was fun to watch.
One of my favorite experiences is teaching the kids a game that we grew up with, in which two people go, and the one on the bottom tries to slap the hand of the person on top before they can remove it away. And they started teaching each other, and they started playing it all day long.
It was really cool to see all the kids playing on the play structure we built, and they all seemed really happy that we built it, which was good.
One of the things I love doing is, you know how I give you all 5 on the way out on Sunday? I did it with them too. And all
Called me over and asked me to try on my gloves and my hat, and then would refuse to give them back when I asked.
All the kids called me their mommy, because I was really close with them, and yeah.
All the girls were braiding my hair and touching my hair and pulling on my hair, which is really cute.
The kids thought that Caitlin, who is my daughter, when I introduced her, they thought she was the mommy because she's so much taller than me. And they didn't believe me when I said I was the mommy.
One of the things I enjoyed most was getting out into the community and meeting people who go to the clinics and to have a chance to interact with those folks who don't have so much.
And I have a family handshake in our family. The rest of the family does not like the family handshake. So, but I taught the kids the family handshake, and by the end of the week, they were coming up to me for the family handshake. So it is probably now the signature shake for the school of White Horses in Jamaica.
Rick, you want to do yours over there?
The whole island. You never know. My favorite was the kids singing in the morning. They started the morning with the classes of kids want to sing together. The kids and teachers sing and dance, and it was just fantastic to watch.
One of the things I was thinking about is oftentimes we see the Bible or even faith as those big events, but it's really probably more in these little tiny events, in between the big events where we learn about God and faith and who we are as a people. And so my charge for you is go out and experience all those little occasions of God in your life. Okay, thanks kids for coming forward. You can follow.
right, so my name is Rick Dooley. My son Sam and I went on the Jamaica trip. Sam actually is at a soccer tournament this morning, so he couldn't be here with us, but I did have him write up his quick thoughts, and then I'll share mine. So this is from Sam. Sam says, I had a lot of expectations going into the trip, but I couldn't have prepared for the experience. The typical idea of Jamaica is either super nice resorts or spotless beaches and palm trees. The reality is really different. The poverty was unimaginable compared to what is seen in the U.S. Every day was different, and it was all awesome. The best part was meeting the kids at the school. It was an entirely new experience being able to see the impact that our project had on the kids. Jamaica was a life-changing experience, and I recommend that if anyone has an opportunity to participate in something similar, then they should definitely do it. So that was from Sam. So when I reflected on my thoughts about Jamaica, I sort of broke it into 3 different ideas. Now when they said 4 or 8 minutes, depending on who you asked, I could talk about Jamaica for hours because it was such an amazing trip, and it's hard to encompass sort of the real feeling for what we did in just a few minutes. But I'm going to try. So I broke it into 3 ideas. I saw Jamaica as contrast, compassion, and camaraderie. And so contrast, when I first said I was going to Jamaica and started telling people we're going to Jamaica, they said, oh yeah, you're going to do a mission trip. Sure, you're going to go sit on the beach in Jamaica. Because most people think of Jamaica as that northwest corner of Jamaica, which is the part where it's sunny and there's beautiful beaches and resorts and hotels and Mai Tais on the beach and all that's great. We went to the southeast corner of Jamaica, which is about as far geographically and economically as you can get from the resort area. So right at the start, from the time 60 restaurants we wanted to eat for lunch and played games and listened to the live piano player, and we landed in Kingston, and it was hot, really hot. And there was one restaurant, one Jamaica jerk place still open, and that was it. And it was crowded, and it was very, very different than what we had just left. And right at the start, Jamaica was a country of those 2 contrasts. We got to our hotel and drove in, and it was dark, and no one really paid much attention, so we found our rooms. The next morning you wake up and half the windows open up to the ocean, and you look and there's these beautiful waves and beach, and you can look up and down the coastline, and it's absolutely stunningly gorgeous. And we had this great breakfast, and then we get on the bus and we drove out of the hotel parking lot through the fence or through the gate, and as soon as you cross the gate, it's poverty. And all the way to church, and it's shacks with walls missing or with corrugated steel for roofs with just a cinder block holding it on. Places with broken windows, people begging on the streets and begging for food. Just abject poverty, potholes and torn up, everything was torn up. It was really striking to see that contrast. Even economically, the area we're in is pretty poor, but there also was there were some neighborhoods that were fairly well off, or little pockets of them. So we were doing a feeding program with the youth, with the Rotary Club down there. And we were in our van and going to different places. And so we drove through this particularly beautiful neighborhood with these big, huge houses with pools and tennis courts and solar panels and everything else. And we parked outside the gate of these places so that our volunteers could go into the woods, because there's homeless encampments in the woods, not 100 yards from these people who have so much. So again, that contrast of those who have so much and those who have so little. The second C of the story is compassion. And it's during that feeding program that I think we really saw that. So with the feeding program, we all got together. We got in our van and drove around with these volunteers, and they had prepared a couple hundred meals that we kept and drove around and gave to people. So we stopped at what I would say a slum, a street that went back into the woods, and a small group of us got to walk back and deliver some meals back there. So the first house we came to, the worker said, "So just so you know, this woman has cerebral palsy." And we said, "Okay." And so the woman who came to the gate, I thought she looked fine to me, and I thought, well, pretty mild cerebral palsy, but whatever. So we walk in the gate, and we don't go maybe 10 feet, and then lying literally on a dog bed outside the door is this woman in her 20s who has by far the worst cerebral palsy I've ever seen. She was so contorted that you couldn't even tell where her hip, knees, ankles were. They were just all wrapped up like this. She was like a pretzel, literally. Nonverbal. And she spends her day, all day, every day for the last 20 some odd years, lying on this dog bed outside the door. And she'll do that for the next 20 years. We went to the next house, and there was a woman who was, in her 90s, living in this back room where there really wasn't, she had a bed, and then maybe a foot from the bed is her cooking stove, and there was, a table with cluttered with lots of things, and in a room that literally was probably half the size of one of the bathrooms in my house, and that was where she lived. We had to climb about a 2-foot step to get in there, so you know that she never leaves that place. That's where she spends all day, every day. We went to a third house, and there was a woman sitting outside, and her adult son was taking a nap, lying in the backyard, and we looked, and he actually had the bags of concrete that had hardened. He had stacked those, and that's what he was sleeping on. That was his bed, was the bags of concrete, because that was the most comfortable thing they had. At each of these stops, and there were more, and I could tell you stories for hours, there are more and more of these everywhere we went, but each of these stops, these volunteers knew these people. They knew their families. They knew who they were, they knew their struggles, and they reached out to them and gave them grace. It was just amazing to see that level of compassion. The third C is camaraderie. And so we went down as, our, 15, very white northern Vermonters in a very hot, very dark climate. And some of us had no building experience at all. Some had never been out of the country. We were different ages. Some of us had never used power tools. Some of us thought that we knew everything about building. But that's okay. So we first got to the school and took a look at it. And it was a little overwhelming. There were big piles of gravel. It was really quite striking. The first night we had a team meeting, and Mark and I spent about 2 hours going back and forth trying to figure out how we were going to build the structure. We had very different opinions. By Monday morning, we still had different opinions. Then we added Jamaicans in who had third and fourth opinions. So we had 4 opinions about how to do this, and 2 different languages, so it was really interesting. So we had a plan in our head. We said, okay, we're going to go dig these holes, but within an hour, the holes will be dug, we'll get the posts up. And so we go with the shovel, and we try to get the first shovelful of dirt, and it goes in literally maybe 1/8 of an inch, just ka-chunk. And we tried another place, ka-chunk, and that's when we realized the whole area was just packed hard, solid clay. And so we spent 4 or 5 hours with pickaxes digging it out and moving grass. It was painstaking work. But by the end of the day, despite all this, by the end of the day, we had 4 posts up, relatively plumb, relatively straight, almost square, which I thought was pretty good. And so that night we had our team meeting, and we talked about our highs and lows of the day and what we learned about Jamaica. And we did that every single night. And so throughout the week, as we started learning about each other, we started learning what we could and couldn't do, we started learning about our personalities, every night we came together and said, okay, let's learn something new. I think that I know that I learned something from everyone on the trip. I would like to think that maybe I taught something to most people on the trip. I think all of us grew. I think all of us learned something from each other and from the people that we were there to serve. And in this world of division and anger and hatred and walls and sort of pushing people away, I feel like we broke down some of those barriers. I feel like we as a group came together, went to Jamaica, spread a little love, got a lot of love back in return. It was just an absolutely amazing experience. So I thank the church for their support. I thank the group for just being a fantastic group to go with. And I look forward to seeing this program continue for years and years to come. Thank you.
Good morning. It's not often that we have the opportunity to leave the comforts of home to immerse ourselves in another culture. We talk about being part of a global community, but I think it's rare that we actually get to experience that, especially in an area of such extreme poverty. In Jamaica, we found the chance to do just that. And we could see that even in the midst of that poverty, there was such a strong sense of community and so much kindness from everyone we met. We could see that even simple, not having very much at all, there was a lot of laughter and joy and gratitude and just the very simple things. And we could see the vital importance of education. It's really hard to sum up the impact of this Jamaican experience. I'm so proud of all that this team accomplished and how hard we all worked. It wasn't always easy. We had to learn how to work together, solve problems, be flexible, all with dealing with the heat and trying to stay hydrated, going through vats of sunscreen and sweating buckets. But each morning after a big, yummy breakfast at our hotel, we were greeted by the sweet voices of the little children singing their morning songs. They were so excited to see us every day, and soon they learned all our names so they could call out to us for hugs or just a visit. And each afternoon, we had just enough time to float and play in the waves. I'm extremely grateful to have had the chance to go on this trip, and to experience it with Caitlin, my daughter, is something I'll always cherish. I love seeing her, along with all the youth, stretch outside their comfort zones and try new things. I loved all the interactions with the children and the teachers at the school and the members of the community who came to help us, even though sometimes that was tricky because we had to set some boundaries. And I'm thankful to have gotten a chance to know this incredible team of people that went on this trip together. Some of us were friends and knew each other before we went. Others of us hardly knew each other at all. But by the end, we were like a family, each of us unique, yet all of us connected. So I want to really thank the church for giving us this opportunity and supporting this intergenerational mission. It's impossible to know what kind of ripple this trip will continue to make in the years to come, for me, for Caitlin, for the other adults and youth on the trip, or in the lives of the people that we all met. But I know we made a difference. And I think that's one way that we're able to experience God's abundant love and grace, by caring for one another, especially the least among us. Thank you.
Good morning. Okay. All over God's kingdom, we are one people, all created the same. No one is superior or inferior. Race, economic status, religion, sexual identity, none of this matters. From our first encounter with the school, both the children and the staff treated us like friends. The whole time we were there, both our group from the first church and the group from the school in Jamaica worked together as one team. No one worried about what race anyone was or what our economic background was. For the duration of the trip, we were one team. Each group took turns sharing whatever we had to share. We shared our plans for a new playground. They shared their food at lunchtime. We shared the supplies we brought with us. They shared extra hands to help us when we got hot and tired. I braided many little girls' hair, and they braided mine. We met people like Kilo and Bees Hive, who were just neighborhood folks who jumped in to help. We shared fun times together, like playing volleyball with the kids and some staff. I believe that God meant for us to live in joy. We who have so very much to be joyful about often spend most of our time grumbling about silly things that don't really matter. The children and the adults we met in Jamaica were so grateful for all that they had, even though it was meager in comparison to our living standards. Because of that gratefulness, their lives seemed so much more full of joy. We can all learn a lesson from them. Our team spent a year planning and preparing for this mission trip. Throughout the time, it seemed to me that we were going to Jamaica to help them, but in the end, they helped me to see what was really important in life. To be grateful and thankful for what I have, and more importantly, that people all across the globe, as Reverend Mark would say, are precious children of God. We are all equals put here on earth to look out for and care for one another. Also, a big thank you to Melvin, our bus driver.
He was a critical part of the team. I'm here to talk to you about a stewardship moment. The strategic plan of this church calls for us to expand our outreach programs locally, nationally, and globally. One of the ways that we strive to address this goal is through the distribution of our pledge dollars by the Missions Committee, who has supported programs such as COTS, the Committee on Temporary Shelter, the Joint Urban Ministry Program, Hannaford Cards for the Pastor's Discretionary Fund, the UCC Disaster Ministry Program, the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, Hurricane Relief, Trans Life Line, Aid to Pine Ridge through Remember, and the Jamaica Service Project. I pledge because I believe all of these programs are important and need our support. Our youth also support this mission trip. Last year, their faith formation donations were used. They collected over $1,200. were used to fund scholarships at the schools so that children didn't have to pay their school fees, and to buy uniforms for 6 or 7 young people who could not afford to have uniforms. So truly, I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these who are members of my family, you did it for me. Thank you.
We'll continue in the service with the morning collection.
Hey everyone, my name is Nolan Berger. I was one of the youth that had the honor of going on this trip. I'd like to start in the school that we worked at, and as we entered, we realized that we had a lot of work to do. It was in a state that we don't see here. Their only structure really to play on was an old swing set, which had jagged edges and it was rusted, and a lot of the kids opted just to play in the yard, either throwing rocks or whatever trash they might have found. And we knew that it was bad. It was a level of poverty we just don't experience here. And then with the Rotary, we went out to deliver meals, and it was even worse. And I went with Rick in that group through the slums and the tin shacks and everything. And it was great to be able to make a difference, at least for that day, delivering food, water, whatever they needed. A lot of them probably wouldn't have eaten that day, or at least hadn't yet. And that meal was impactful for a lot of them. But what I found more amazing than, or more shocking, I guess, than the level of poverty was how aware they were. And some people knew that they had more than others, and they would actually turn down food. Even if they likely hadn't eaten that day, they would turn it down because they knew that other people needed it more than they did. Now, seeing the scale that it was on was incredible. It was, like Rick said, no more than 100 yards away from these polished homes, likely wealthy owners. There are people who probably wouldn't eat or spend their whole lives in one room or on a dog bed. And it was nice to think that we had an impact, even if just for an hour, 5 minutes, talking with these people, learning their stories, giving them a person to tell, and now we can tell everyone else. And at the school, being able to build a playground that's hopefully there a while, and knowing that they're going to have somewhere to play, something to do that isn't dangerous, or at least less dangerous than throwing rocks at each other. And it's good to feel that they're still out there and they're still playing on that playground, and hopefully they will for a long time. I'm going to close with a thanks to everyone who helped make this possible, and our leaders and everyone. So thank you.
So my name's Peter Schmaltz. I'm really excited to share what I took away from the trip. I've never really been on a mission trip like this. I've done, a day trip here or a morning here, but this was something for me that I'd never experienced. And I was trying to think ahead of time, what would a good mission trip look like? And the kind of 3 things that stood out in my mind would be you would be part of a team working together to accomplish a mission. And you would be given an opportunity for personal growth, maybe to learn something about yourself, but also to learn something about that particular area, and then also to connect to the larger human family outside of my world at work or at Essex Junction or in the United States. So looking at those kind of 3 parameters, our team met for the year leading up to the trip. We got to know each other. We spent a lot of time learning about Jamaica, learning about what we would see there, kind of getting ready for the shock that you've heard people talking about, also getting ready to challenge ourselves and what we could expect. We had different skills and different personalities. I told them up front, don't give me a handsaw or a drill and everything will be great. No one will get hurt. But by the end of the trip, I was actually using a circular saw and a drill. So that for me was a big step forward. And just for the team, seeing the kids that I've watched Zach grow up with, since this small, and now here they are, my goodness, young adults doing a great project together in another country. I mean, it was just terrific on every level. And the folks that I didn't know that well, Dave and Christine, Aaliyah, I've gotten to know Aaliyah and Sharon and the Dooleys that I knew, but not really super well. So it was a great opportunity for me and to be a part of a team like that. And then in terms of the personal growth, clearly you can hear from the kids what they saw and experienced has left a long impression for them in their personal growth. But for me, it was just as powerful seeing what these communities didn't have and what we were able to do for them. But what they would give back to us in terms of their friendships and their compassion and their energy and positivity was really impressive to me. And just being immersed in a place that is so poverty-stricken, seeing these kids out of poverty, so they take it so seriously, and the teachers are just so dedicated and inspirational that for us to see that every day in the midst of our work project just really kind of strikes you to your core. And then for the third part of the mission, to connect to the greater humanity, we learned about another culture and another country that really struggles in a lot of ways. We were able to accomplish a very specific goal and something that they wanted and that was helpful to them. And we're so fortunate to have this infrastructure in place with Sharon's leadership going back 20 years. She already knows the people. She knows the community. We can come in with a group that's new but do a project that really accomplishes something. And we're just very fortunate to have that. We could start a new mission trip to a new place, but we would take years to really build up the trust and relationships that Sharon has already done, and Carolyn in her time helping as well. So I just feel so fortunate that we had this opportunity, that I could do it with my son Zach, and that we really had the support of everyone in the congregation financially, donations for the Calcutta. It's just a wonderful thing for our church to do for us and for the community there, and I just really am appreciative for the incredible opportunity. Thank you.
Powerful things that many of the people have talked about is how they felt connected to folks in Jamaica, sort of something that we don't have much opportunity to do for the foreign country and a different economic, socioeconomic background. And if there's anything I've learned, that when you travel someplace, you can always go to a church. I've been all over the world, and you can always go to the church. They always welcome. I've always been welcomed in. And to go down to the church in Jamaica and hear songs that we were familiar with and a message that rang true to what we believe here is a very powerful experience, both for me and I think the group. And World Communion Sunday focuses on that and focuses on the national boundaries drift away when we're all united in the faith. And it's a powerful witness for this world of who we are as a people.